Oops. Here we go. Are we live?
I guess we're live.
Fantastic, we're live. Okay. Hi everyone. I'm here today to present about our new project, our new idea, which has been going for a little while now, the Open Source Village. So, a bit about me. I'm Alex Curtin-Griffiths. I've been involved with making, hacking, open source for quite a few years now. Started off at Shenzhen, the first hackerspace in China. Got involved with Space Gambit, which is open source space technology. Now involved with another group in China, looking at how do we take the building blocks of a village, how do we make them open source, and how do we actually put that together into something real that can inspire and spread around the world. So, this is the Open Source Village. And the reason we're doing it is humans kind of suck. We've been wrecking Earth for a while, and it's not going to get better unless we do something about it. Like, 200 million people are suffering from pollution around the world, and the world is urbanizing ever more quickly, so that number is only going to increase. You know, and when I say suffering, it's not just dying, it's not just people getting sick, but it's reduced productivity, it's all sorts of things. So, our idea for how to combat this is starting with one village in Anhui Province in China. We're looking at building an open source eco-village. And we've already had interest from a lot of people about spreading this around China, and soon as, well, and hopefully around the world as well. We wanted to start with one, but it's exploding already. Everything we're doing, we're looking at doing open source, so it can be spread, it can be shared, and being used as a test bed for green technologies to see how well they work, to spread them around the world. So, site number one, we've got it in China, in Anhui Province. About 2 hours train journey from Shanghai, and I need to fill in more about that slide. But we've got a quick map here with how far it is from Beijing, from other places. Now, why China? Well, I said earlier, humans kind of suck, and China is not in the best place pollution-wise. The government knows this. It's putting money into this. And in other countries, having the idea for an open source village would get a lot of interest. But planning permission takes time. Everything takes time. In China, stuff can happen really fast. And that really helps us because, you know, we're makers, we're hackers. We mess things up. So if we're going to fail, we want to fail quickly, we want to fail often, and then we want to be able to unfail by adapting fast. And China's the place to make that happen. And why do we want it to be open? Well, there are a load of reasons for this. Partly it's personal. I've been involved in the open source community for years now. Some of my colleagues are getting into it, and they're really interested. You know, we wouldn't be here without open source ways of thinking. Science is built by us standing on the shoulders of giants. The whole net is running on open source, and, well, thank God for the net. But it's also practical. If we want to build a village, how on earth do we do that? That takes a lot of people. And open source lets us build a big community to do this with. There's even an economic angle to this. A load of people say, no, open source can't make money. Well, a load of open source companies have been making money. By making it open, we help establish a standard that can be replicated, that can be built on worldwide. And because we're starting the standard, we start out as the de facto experts. But also, we're doing this in China. We know it's going to get copied without any financial recompense. So we're building that in from day one. So we can have it be copied, but still maintain some kind of ownership, some guidance over the project. We're using a bunch of different technologies to do this. There are so many open source tech things that we can use for a village. A lot of them are quite separate projects at the moment. Many are just at a prototype stage, and they're not being tested and integrated into larger scale systems. And in part, that's what we're trying to do. So, a lot of you will have heard of Fab Labs, digital fabrication laboratories. I'm giving a talk in one right now. We've got laser cutters, we've got CNC machines that can cut wood or metal into anything you want. You've got 3D printed sewing machines. Fab labs, maker spaces, hacker spaces, they're all around the world. They're like your garden shed. It's full of the tools you have to build the stuff you love. But imagine 100 garden sheds under one roof. 100 people who love to make stuff under one roof, sharing tools, materials, ideas and inspiration. Those are hacker spaces, fab labs, maker spaces. And we're working with them in China and around the world to help build our village. And in the center of the village will be our own fab lab with all the tools we need. We're also looking at working closely with WikiHouse. So WikiHouse is open source architecture. The plans are online. You can download them. You can go to a milling shop, or you can use your own CNC. Take some wood, cut the parts for your house, and a few people over a couple of days can put this thing together. Not many materials required, just wood. I don't think you even need nails, but we might need to check that. You can even CNC the mallets for smacking it all together. We've also got shower loop. This is part of the POC21 project, which I'll talk about in the next slide. But it's a shower that reuses the wastewater. So you're not wasting gallons and gallons of water. The stuff that goes down the drain as grey water is recycled, pumped back into the system and comes back out. And we're working with the POC21 project. This was based out of France, an innovation boot camp to bring together loads of sustainability folks, makers, hackers, designers, to build lots of new sustainable technologies. And we really want to implement lots of these in the village and scale them up. Now, a village, well, it's beyond more than just buildings. It's about community. It's about ways of living. It's about infrastructure. So that's something we're trying to think about as we move forwards as well. Because that's going to influence how we make the buildings, how we do the urban planning. So there are a bunch of communities we've been looking at, Burning Man being one of them. A lot of people, a lot of our team, they really love Burning Man. The radical self-expression, the radical self-sufficiency. And if you haven't heard Burning Man, look it up on YouTube. It's the biggest, craziest, artsiest, musicaliest festival in the world. Happening in Black Rock Desert, Nevada. About 100,000 people come together for a week, build a city in the desert, and after that week is gone, they take it all away again and leave no trace. Communes is another interesting way of living that we're looking at. Probably not replicating it exactly, but looking at how can we use some of the principles. You know, sharing, working together, radical equality. Green living, so permaculture, how do we live in balance with nature? Free towns that are a big movement in Europe, like Christiania in Denmark. So they have been called beyond the reach of law. That's something we're not looking at being in China. They're a self-governing social experiment and something, again, to take inspiration from. And we're looking for loads of ideas from you, the community, in this moving forwards. We don't have all the answers. Hell, we don't even have all the questions we need to ask. So help us out here. In terms of implementation, we have to balance practicality and philosophy. Yes, we are totally all about open source, but waiting for every single building block to be open sourced before we break ground on a village, we're going to be waiting forever. Not to mention, how do you even open source a brick, something that's just so simple? There are a lot of questions. Some of them need answering, some of them can wait. We need to get moving on this. So version 1.0, it will be a mishmash. I don't feel wonderful about that, but it's the only way it's going to get going. Version 1.x, or 1.y or 1.z, will be implementing bug fixes, because we're not going to get it 100% perfect first time. And version 2.0 and onwards, we'll be trying to patch it, taking out the closed technology and replacing it with something more open, either from a new project that springs up after we start the village, or by running competitions and challenges to crowdsource new projects. Now, we're a small team. We can't do this alone. We're getting a load of ideas from people around the world, but the more the better. Because we want this to be a global program. One eco-village, in the grand scheme of things, isn't going to change a damn thing. We want them everywhere. We want this to spread, so we need ideas from everybody to do it. So, right now we've got a wiki, we've got a huge list of open source technologies on a site called Trello. All the links are on our website at openvillage.org. And as I said before, we don't have all the questions. So if you can help us, if you're inspired to help in a way that I haven't even thought of or mentioned yet, get in touch and let us know. These are a whole bunch of credits for the images. You know, we're all about open source. The images were Creative Commons, so we're giving credit where credit's due. Ways you can get in touch with us. We've got the website at openvillage.org. You can email us at contact@openvillage.org. We're on Twitter at OpenSourceVille. If any of you want to get my WeChat information or figure out other ways to get in touch, let me know. And that's pretty much all we have time for tonight, but thanks everybody, and looking forward to hearing from you.
Okay, so we have a bunch of questions.
Okay.
I can see that online you have some people that are asking. So this is a question from Yadzan Jarjura, and his question is, what sustainable energy do you want to use?
Right, that's a very good question, and we're really looking at using renewable energies as far as possible. There are a bunch of interesting open source solar and wind and hydro projects out there. We need to test them on the ground in real world conditions. I think the village is already wired for power. Knowing China, that's probably coming from coal right now, which sucks, frankly, but it is what it is. Version 1 being practicality and all that, we'll take what we can get. We need to bootstrap our way. You know, if we can get it going with solar quickly and easily and cheaply tomorrow, hell yes.
Questions?
I dropped in a little bit late, so I might be asking something you explained before. But I would be interested, like, what exactly is the location you're talking about, and are you actually building up on some existing village? I think I got that from your last explanation. And then how are you dealing with that, and how are you dealing with the community, and how do you envision that being part of it later?
That's a really good question. We're looking at working with the community to build this place.
So there is already one.
There is a community that are outside the village in the same general area that we'll be looking at relocating to the village. Mm-hmm. Right now the village is deserted, but there are quite a few buildings already there. And we're going to work around those buildings and integrate them. We're not going to tear them down.
Right.
One way we're looking at working with the villagers and, you know, anybody who wants to get involved is, so I spoke a little bit about WikiHouse, so open source architecture, and right now it's a wooden box. It doesn't look very custom, but because it's open source, everybody can customize a WikiHouse to the way they want. So we want to work with the people who'll move in. It might just be cosmetic stuff. How do we make it look more Chinese, traditionally? How do we integrate it into the history of the local area? Or, you know, if you want Hello Kitty carved into your roof, how do we do that? It's about working with the individuals to give them what they want.
Right.
Does that answer the question?
Yeah, I guess so.
Right.
Thanks.
Do you have some question? You're right.
Sorry, I totally missed the whole presentation. Trying to get out of the office. No, I mean, I'm just so interested in the topic and kind of wondering why that particular place was picked, but which I'm sure you already covered. So I'm sorry to make you.
I covered
tell the
why
same
China,
story.
But not the specific location.
but not the specific location. So China, because we have interested partners there. Stuff gets done quickly in China if you know the right people. the pollution is bad in China, so the government are really looking into green solutions. So that's why China. The actual site in Anhui, we've had interest from several sites. These guys are the ones who move quickly and get stuff done.
So it really sort of down to the local, like maybe the village level government bodies and sort of their decision power and speed.
We're working more with the development companies, so private industry, and they deal with the government.
Gotcha.
So we're working. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
We're working with a company that is building several villages, and one of them will be the open source village.
I see. So in terms of, because my sort of impression of doing anything in China is you need some kind of government approval, but there's various levels, right? So it's sort of like at what level do you need to go up or down to in order to get something like this going?
I wish I could answer that question for you. I can pass it on to some of our team who would know better. I think in any country you're going to need some kind of planning consent, and from what I've heard, even if you know the right people in other countries, it's a bit of a pain to get that.
Yeah.
In China, sometimes not so much.
Right. But I guess the developer in this sense can also assist in that role because they probably have deeper roots with.
They have deeper roots. They've had a lot more experience in this. That's kind of the benefit of working with the existing developers and not just being a bunch of crazy makers and going in there and trying to do it with gumption, heart, and a whole lot of moxie. It doesn't really work that way.
Are you based there right now, or are you planning to be based there throughout the whole process, or what's the involvement of the team?
So most of the development company is based in Beijing.
Right.
The village site is in Anhui.
Can you ask who is the developer name, or is it confidential?
The developer is called Max City.
Max City.
Yeah, MAX City.
Is it a local developer?
It's a local developer. It's a Chinese developer.
Yeah. But there's a problem in China. There's like phantom cities, right? Like people build cities, but then nobody goes there. How are you going to not do that to your project?
We're working with the sort of the village chiefs, the county officials in the local area, to make sure it does fit and there is a demand. And we're working with the locals as well. And also ours isn't really in the middle of nowhere. Mm. It's not that far from Hefei, the provincial capital of Anhui. Getting there on the train from Shanghai takes a couple of hours. So it's not in the middle of Inner Mongolia or the Gobi Desert.
Mm-hmm. Oh, new questions. There's two questions. I will ask the question from Gregory Moulinet. Actually, he's close
to... I know Gregory.
Ah, okay.
I know a Gregory Moulinet.
Ah, okay. What will be the very first step for construction? Living structure, infrastructure, or harnessing local resources?
Very good question again. The first thing we've really been talking about is building a fab lab in the middle of the village site and building out from there. You know, having the tools on site, and you know, this is quite close to Shanghai as well, so getting materials, getting additional tools isn't too difficult. So yeah, fab lab first, spread out from there.
Other question from Yazan Georgura. He's suggesting that this type of construction, he thinks that it has a big potential for the refugee camp. Do you have any comments on that? Do you think that's a technology that's transferable to refugee camp in terms of cost and fabrication?
Wow, yeah. That would be amazing. I'd really like to talk to more people in this field, and if you're in this field, get in touch with me. This is a huge problem that needs to be solved, and I guess it would depend on, is it a very long-term refugee camp or meant to be a short-term kind of transitional camp? If it is longer term, then having something like WikiHouse, having something like this, especially where the community can get involved in building it, everyone would win from that. So I'm definitely interested.
Other questions? I have a bunch of questions. Prepared them. So I have 5 questions, but then you can take. I can repeat them, but one. I don't want it to be too long either. So one question: do you own the land? The second is: are you energy, and are you going to be trying to look? I mean, they talk about energy sufficiency. I wonder about waste efficiency. I have a question about the governance model, about the money, and the last question is: why would people want to copy it? Which one do you want to go for first? Which one do you feel like you want to answer first?
Okay, so some of the money stuff I'm not really that qualified to answer yet.
Okay.
Land ownership, I have to speak to the team.
Uh-huh. Do you own the land yet, or you don't own the land?
I want to speak to the team about that.
Okay.
I'm starting out with the Anhui project. I only got involved a couple of months ago in a really deep level, so that's something I need to talk to the team about. In China, typically land ownership, there's a lot of, I think the government puts a cap of 70 years on it, but I'm no expert in that field.
So your role is more as a consultant?
Yeah, basically, I've got a lot of experience with open source, with makers, with hackers all around the world. I know how to speak to makers and hackers. A lot of development companies, they come at it from a very different angle.
Commercial.
Not just commercial, but like we're also working with philosophers and designers who are not so commercial, but they're not so deeply embedded in the open source and the maker communities.
My last question is, why do you think would people want to copy it? Because you're saying that you assume that they're going to, but maybe you've explained this in many ways, but...
Right.
Yeah.
Mostly we're assuming it because people already do want to copy it. Every time I talk about this idea, it's been kind of infectious. People really like it and want to run with it. And it's like this existing stuff, WikiHouse. I think over 50 of them are built or are being built all around the world. So, yeah, people want to get off the grid. People want to get hands-on. They want to build their own places. You know, that might be because housing costs are rising. That might be because they want to customize their own place. It might be the micro-house movement. It might be refugee camps. It might be survivalists who want to get out there and do their own thing. There are a lot of people interested.
Yes.
Any others?
Any other questions coming up?
I had one and I blanked out. Give me 1 second. Are there sort of successful cases, because this is a new project, right? It's a greenfield project. Are there similar communities that have run with the idea so that, you know, if we want to get an idea of what it will look like, that you would recommend that we can check out and study it?
There are several things that we're looking to for inspiration that are somewhat similar. Burning Man, for example. Are you familiar with it?
Yes, though that one is a temporary community?
It is temporary, yes. We're looking at, in part, how can we take some of the Burning Man principles and the idea of leaving no trace and being sustainable, and how do we make that more permanent?
I see.
Most of the team I'm working with, we are either burners or we want to be burners. So, and I was saying, yes, I so want to do Burning Man in China more permanently, but we might have to cut out some of the sex and nudity because it might not work in China.
Well, and there's also the whole sort of like driving your luxury RV with, you know, 2 weeks of caviar to Burning Man. But like, how is, like, that sort of doesn't fit into the whole like bring nothing and leave nothing model?
That's a whole other can of worms. The whole glamping kind of thing, the glam camp.
But then I think it also just brings into, because I haven't been to one, but I'm guessing most people go with some kind of supplies, or even though a lot of structures and amenities are built on site. But then when you apply to a more permanent community, it will have to be sort of cradle to cradle. There's sort
Yeah.
of nothing. There can't be infinite external input that goes into the community. So I guess that part.
That's true, yeah. There's going to be a balance, and a lot of it, that balance, we're going to be working out as we go along.
Mm-hmm.
You know, documenting it on the wiki so we can share this with the world.
Are there sort of like urban examples or like suburban examples that?
There's not exactly in replicating and adapting Burning Man, but there are free towns around the world, like Christiania in Denmark, which it says they like to say they're beyond the reach of law and they have their own currency. So we can't really implement that, but a self-governing social experiment, the social experiment side of that we can do. It's really picking different principles from different places, throwing them together, debating them, trying them out, and the village is a great place to do that.
Right.
And seeing what works. And then once something's been proven to work, maybe we can look at, or other cities can look at doing that. Or, we've been thinking about smart cities as well. Like, you want to implement these technologies and these methodologies to empower your citizens and reduce waste and increase efficiency. But doing it on a citywide level, that's a big risk. It's expensive, it takes time, it's disruptive. If you do that in a small village, there's a test bed.
Yeah.
It's a great experimentation platform.
And I guess also to look at it another way, that I guess the lack of track record is what calls the open source method, so that people do hopefully in the future have sort of a role model to look at and track it.
Well, a role model, or like a God, don't do this, don't do what they do. But at least
you learn more from mistakes,
there.
Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And what is the timeline of the project? Like when are the first residents expected to move in? And
well, the Fab Lab we're looking at getting going in the next couple of months. The official launch will be next month. So, and then I think we just want to see how it goes. I don't want to start making promises about getting people in just yet.
But the developer and the government doesn't ask for any sort of commitment of timeline, or they're okay. I find that kind of surprising.
They seem to be okay with it so far. I need to speak more to the team, because they're more involved with the government side of things. I'm more maker outreach, I would say.
So is your role more of reaching into the community and trying to pull out ideas that can then contribute back to the
Exactly, yeah. It's about getting ideas, sharing ideas, and getting makers and hackers and designers on site as well. Getting their hands dirty and working with us to get this going. We're not at the stage where we're getting the hackers and makers in, but if you're interested, again, get in touch.
What do you foresee could be the biggest challenge for this project? What do you think could be hard about this? What do you anticipate the hurdles?
I think putting a business model around this is, I wouldn't say hard, but because a lot of open source companies have made money before, but even in hardware, but applying it to a village, it's taking a lot of ideas that have worked elsewhere and throwing them together and seeing what works in that regard.
You're saying that you don't think it's going to be profitable? Is that what you're saying?
I think it'll be profitable,
yeah.
But not immediately. It's going to take a little bit of time.
What would be the commercial activity that would make it profitable? Just the fact that people rent space, that would be the business model? Or do you expect to extract value from this community in a different way?
We've got a lot of ideas. We're still talking through the business plan. So I don't want to speak too soon about that. We will have something up on the wiki when it's a little more fixed. It's like releasing code. We don't want to do it if it's not ready.
Because when people come into an open source project, oftentimes they will claim a much greater level of transparency, even on the finance.
Of course.
I would imagine. That's why I'm asking this question. Like, if you have a governance or like a financial model, will the citizens of that village like see actually where the money is coming from and where it's going? Unlike many cities.
We are looking at income and revenue sharing with the designers and the hackers who contribute, with the villagers, and with the development company running the village. So we want a lot of transparency. We're just working out how we're doing it at the moment in that regard. But in terms of governance, send us ideas. Yeah.
Is the openvillage.org the preferred way to sort of, if I want to see how the project is going, or is there another?
The public-facing website is openvillage.org,
Yep.
where we're putting out blog posts and things like that.
Yeah.
A lot of the interesting stuff is happening on the wiki, wiki.openvillage.org.
Okay.
Right now, anybody is free to contribute. No account sign-up is required, and I hesitate to say that on a live video feed. If I have to log on there tomorrow morning and I have to close down public editing, then just please don't troll. But yeah, that's where the interesting stuff is happening, where the ideas are being kicked around. So yeah, we're talking more about the business plan and revenue streams. We will have something up on the wiki about that when it's a little more solid. But there's a lot more on the wiki right now than the main website, I would say.
Who are the designers?
We've got an architect, Wang Ziyi. We'll be using, I think, some of the existing WikiHouse designs and adapting them. And working with
local? Are they local
WikiHouse.
Yeah.
No, the local
Who's the
architect.
designer?
Wang Ziyi is a local architect,
Oh.
based out of Beijing, but that's where our development company is based. And we want to work with the local communities to help us design it as well. And any other designers who might be interested. Yeah, I don't know a lot of people doing open source architecture at the moment. And a lot of the time, the open source architecture I've seen has been it's been great, but it's been functional. And having some kind of customizability in there. Like, how do we adapt a WikiHouse to reflect the landscape, to reflect the culture of the region, even to reflect the personality or the likes of the resident of that house. And because it's open source, we can do that. You know, we can just CNC a few extra parts and you can make your house look traditionally Chinese, or you can put a giant Hello Kitty head on your house if you want.
Are there any the 3D house printing technologies being involved in this?
Not
that
at
not really
present.
taking off?
I've looked at a lot of them. Well, I would say I've read about a lot of them. I haven't seen them in person. I'd like to experiment with some before I make a firm commitment on that.
I guess it's also more for mass producing as well. I don't know.
Yeah,
I've always seen
it's-
the sort of the slabs. You can make little sort of parts of a larger building.
Yeah, I really like the idea of using 3D printing to make buildings, but we are looking at balancing practicality and philosophy. So if it's cheaper with Village version 1.0,
Right.
cheaper and more practical, we'll use existing construction materials
Right.
and patch those with more open, with more makery alternatives as time goes on.
Understand.
A question from Vinicius Bras Roca. He said, interesting, but still building up something, not giving new meanings to what already exists, like, for example, sharing cities. Are you familiar with sharing cities?
I'm not, yeah.
I don't know. And dude, why this business model, old way of thinking crap? That's his question.
A village needs to be sustainable, and that isn't just ecologically sustainable, it's financially sustainable. You know, developers need a reason to build these things. So, and we need to talk to the outside world about this. You know, I love open source, but other people have to be sold on this. So it is what it is.
Is this so? What you're saying is that this is not questioning capitalism. This is adapting a village structure to an existing economic structure. Is that right?
As much as possible.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's again a question of balancing practicality and philosophy, and that might sound like a cop-out. I know, but without that, we're not going to get it off the ground in the first place. It's just going to be a nice little wiki with nice little ideas, but nothing's going to get done.
Okay, no more questions? Okay, I think we've asked all the questions that came online as well.
Great, fantastic.
Thanks a lot, Alex, again.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, turning this off.